The planet Veltraxia shimmered under its twin suns. Its skies were a deep shade of violet, and its towering crystal cities sparkled like diamonds. The entire planet was preparing for one of the most awaited events in the galaxy. The Tournament of Hearts. This tournament was ancient, a sacred Veltraxian tradition. It was not only about strength and skill. It was a test of honor, courage, and character. The winner would receive something far greater than gold or power. They would win the heart and hand of Princess Orella, daughter of Queen Elira and ruler of the Veltraxian people. Thousands of beings from different corners of the galaxy came to compete. Warriors with wings, armor-skinned beasts, silent assassins, and noble champions all arrived to take part. Each of them was proud, powerful, and sure they would win. None of them expected a human to be there. In fact, many had never even heard of Earth, but one human had entered the competition. His name was Rylan. He arrived alone, wearing a simple gray uniform, carrying no weapons, no banners, and no pride. When he walked past the other contestants, some laughed at him, others ignored him. One alien, a massive red-scaled fighter with tusks, asked, "Are you lost, little earthling?" Rylan just smiled and kept walking. He was calm, quiet, and observant. He didn't care for their insults. He knew why he was there. Not for fame. Not even for the princess. He came because he believed that humans had more to offer than others assumed. He wanted to prove it, not just to aliens, but to himself. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Princess Orella sat beside her mother and watched the tournament registration on a large crystal screen. Her long silver hair was tied behind her shoulders, and her violet eyes scanned the screen with curiosity. She had met many warriors before, all of them strong, loud, and eager to impress. None of them had ever looked at her like a person. They only saw her as a prize. But then she noticed Rylan. "Who is that one?" she asked a royal assistant. "Oh, human. From Earth. Unknown in galactic records. Entered through the open-for-all clause." Orella raised her eyebrows. "A human? Alone?" Her mother frowned. "He will not last a day." But the princess didn't speak. She just kept watching. The next day, the first round of the tournament began. It was called the Gauntlet of Beasts. The warriors were dropped into a large enclosed arena filled with traps, wild terrain, and massive alien creatures known as Drumacs. These beasts had thick skin, sharp teeth, and could crush stone with their tails. The goal was simple: survive for 1 hour. The moment the horn sounded, chaos exploded. Warriors pulled out their weapons and charged. Metal clashed, roars echoed, and the crowd cheered. Some warriors worked in teams, others fought alone. The beasts attacked with wild rage. Rylan didn't join the chaos. Instead, he climbed a tree and watched. He studied the Drumacs, how they moved, where they avoided, what made them stop. He used a small rock to test a path, then moved through the shadows. While others fought for glory, Rylan survived with strategy. One Drumac nearly cornered him. Instead of fighting it, Rylan lured it into a deep pit. He used broken vines to cover the hole. The beast fell in with a loud roar, and the crowd watching through the broadcast gasped. Princess Orella leaned forward. He didn't even use a weapon. Her mother stayed silent. When the horn finally sounded again, only 11 warriors remained out of 40. Rylan stood among them, tired, scratched, but still standing. The announcer, a three-eyed alien with golden skin, spoke loudly over the arena speakers. Against all odds, the human lives. Some cheered, some hissed, others still laughed. But Rylan looked up at the royal balcony. He didn't wave, he didn't bow. He simply nodded once. And Orella smiled, just a little. That night, back in the resting quarters, Rylan sat alone in his room. It was quiet. No other warrior came to speak with him, but someone knocked on his door. It was a young Veltraxian girl, a servant from the palace. She brought him food and a small datapad. "The princess wanted you to have this," she said shyly. Rylan looked at the datapad. It showed a detailed map of the next day's arena challenge. It wasn't cheating. Every warrior had the right to prepare, but the princess had chosen to give him the information personally. "Tell her thank you," he said kindly, "and tell her I'll give it my best." The girl smiled and ran off. Rylan looked at the map and sighed. So, next is the trial of fire. He closed his eyes and rested. He knew it would only get harder from here, but he wasn't afraid. He had faced worse on Earth. He had survived wars no one talked about, and most of all, he knew who he was, even if no one else did yet. In the palace, Princess Aurelia stood on her balcony watching the stars. "Why do I feel like he's different?" she whispered. Her royal guard stepped forward. "Because he doesn't look at you like others do. He doesn't want to win you. He wants to earn your respect." The princess nodded slowly. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a prize. She felt like a person. The second day of the tournament brought new energy to Veltraxia. The skies were stormy that morning. Thick clouds rolled above the palace and a cold wind swept across the golden arenas. Spectators gathered early, eager to see what would happen next. After the unexpected survival of the human Rylan, the galaxy was watching. The next challenge was called the Trial of Fire. It was not just about flames. It was a test of endurance, speed, and courage. Competitors had to pass through a labyrinth of molten rock, shifting platforms, and sudden eruptions of heat. The arena was built above an active lava stream, and the heat could melt steel. Even the bravest warriors felt fear. As the remaining warriors stood at the gate, the announcer's voice echoed across the arena. "Today's trial is not for the weak-hearted. Each path holds danger. Only those who reach the beacon at the center of the fire zone will continue to the next round. Good luck, and may the flames respect your strength." Rylan looked around. Every warrior wore advanced armor, cooling suits, fireproof gear, and protective shields. Rylan, he wore only a simple heat-resistant vest and gloves. No helmet, no high-tech gear. Just his sharp eyes and calm mind. One Veltraxian warrior leaned over to him. "You survived yesterday by luck, human. But fire doesn't care about clever tricks." Rylan replied softly. "Fire also doesn't care about pride." The gate opened. The trial began. The fire arena roared to life. Platforms moved randomly and jets of fire burst from the floor. Some warriors rushed ahead, trying to reach the beacon before others. One slipped and fell into a burning pit, vanishing instantly. Rylan didn't run. He crouched, tested the platform's timing, and watched the flames. He didn't try to beat the fire. He moved with it. He used small steps, never rushing. He found a path between bursts, then rolled under a falling gate just in time. At one point, he used a metal pole to trigger a fire trap early, then jumped over it safely. The crowd was silent. They were used to shouting and clashing. But this human was quiet, controlled, and smart. Princess Aurelia sat forward in her seat, her hands clenched. "He's not the fastest," she whispered. "But he's the only one not fighting the fire." Her mother, Queen Illyra, raised an eyebrow. "It seems he studies his surroundings." "Like a scholar," Aurelia said, "but with the courage of a warrior." 1 hour passed. Only 5 warriors reached the center beacon. Rylan was one of them. He was sweating, his arms slightly burned, but he stood tall. The announcer cried out, "5 passed through the fire!" And once again the human endures. Cheers broke out, not as many as the others got, but louder than before. Rylan walked to the healing station quietly. The medics checked his burns. One Veltraxian nurse, surprised by his calmness, asked, "Doesn't it hurt?" Rylan smiled. "Of course, but pain teaches us things if we listen." That night the warriors gathered in the common hall. It was a quiet, tense place. Each knew the next challenge would be harder. Whispers moved through the hall about the human. Some respected him, others were bothered by him. One warrior named Drovak, a tall creature with 6 arms and dark armor, slammed his mug on the table. "This human ruins the spirit of the games. He doesn't fight like a warrior. He sneaks and avoids." A few others nodded. But another warrior, a four-eyed creature named Vina, replied, "He's still here. That means something." Rylan, sitting nearby, didn't speak. He simply stood, walked outside, and looked up at the stars. Outside the hall, Princess Orella stood in a private balcony, watching the night sky as well. She saw a figure standing below in the garden, quiet, alone, not looking for attention. She walked down without telling her guards. Rylan heard footsteps and turned. He blinked when he saw who it was. "I thought you'd be resting," she said. "I find peace in silence," Rylan replied. She walked closer. "You are different." "I've been told that before," he said with a small smile. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Truly, not just for the title or the crown." Rylan looked at the stars. "Because people like me, people from Earth, we don't get remembered. Our world isn't powerful in this galaxy, but I came to prove something." "Prove what?" "That humans have more than strength. We have spirit. We survive because we learn. We adapt." Orella was silent. She looked into his eyes and saw no greed, no pride, just truth. Then she smiled. "Well, you've got 3 more trials to prove that to the galaxy." Rylan chuckled softly. "I'll do my best." The next morning came with a warning. A message arrived for the Royal Council. Someone had tried to damage one of the upcoming trial arenas. A saboteur was caught, hired by an unknown noble family. They wanted to remove the human before he got any further. Queen Elira was furious. "This dishonors the sacred games." Princess Orella was worried. "Mother, they're afraid of him." "Yes," the queen said, "because he is showing them a strength they don't understand." The council agreed to tighten security. Any further cheating would lead to disqualification. Rylan, however, already knew someone would try to stop him. He had seen the glares, heard the whispers, but he didn't care. He didn't come for their approval. He came to show that a human's strength is not in muscle, but in heart. The third trial was not a test of fire or strength. It was a test of values. The arena looked peaceful this time. It was a large, open field under a dome of light, filled with flowers, quiet rivers, and statues of past champions. But peace was only an illusion. This round was called the Test of Heart. Each warrior would face a difficult choice. It would be different for each of them. The test was private, watched only by the Royal Council and judged by their actions, not by strength or speed. No crowd, no loud cheers, just choices. Rylan stepped into the arena quietly. He didn't know what he would face, but he had a feeling it would not be a normal fight. As soon as he crossed the first statue, everything around him faded. The arena vanished, and he found himself in what looked like a battlefield from Earth. Gray skies, broken buildings, and smoke. It was an illusion, but it felt real. In front of him, 2 people lay injured. One was a young Veltraxian boy, crying for help. The other was a large warrior from a previous round, bleeding and unconscious. Then a voice echoed in the air. "You can only save one. Choose." Rylan's heart pounded. He looked at the child, helpless, afraid. Then he looked at the warrior, a man he had once fought beside who had protected others in the last trial. Time was running out. The building nearby began to collapse. Many would pick the warrior, stronger, more useful in battle. But Rylan picked up the boy. He ran with him, jumped over rubble, and shielded him as the illusionary building fell. The trial ended. Everything disappeared. He stood back in the real arena holding nothing. The judges made no announcement. They only marked a result in their records and motioned him to leave. Rylan walked out, calm as always. Meanwhile, other warriors failed the test. Some chose pride over kindness. Some refused to help anyone unless they got something in return. One even attacked the illusion, thinking it was a trick. Only 3 passed the test. Rylan, Vina, the four-eyed warrior, and Threx, a powerful noble champion. But Threx passed for another reason. He simply refused to leave anyone behind and carried both figures on his back, even though it almost crushed him. He roared through the fire and passed out after reaching the end. The council was impressed, but Princess Orella watched Ryland's test closely. She saw how he had chosen the weak without hesitation. He didn't ask who the child was. He didn't ask what would happen. He just acted, she whispered. Queen Elira nodded slowly. Yes, that is rare. That evening, as the results were shared with the public, something strange happened. One of the servants delivering food to the warriors dropped a tray near Ryland's door. When she leaned to pick it up, she whispered, "Be careful. Someone placed a tracker on your boots." Ryland looked down. Hidden under his left boot was a tiny blinking device hard to notice unless you were trained to look for it. He picked it up and crushed it quietly. "Thank you," he said. The girl nodded. "Princess Orella told me to look after you." Ryland paused. "She did?" "She said you'd never ask for help. So someone has to help you when you're not looking." Ryland smiled. "She's kind." "No," the girl replied. "She's interested." Later that night, while others slept, Ryland walked to the royal garden. He expected peace. Instead, he found Princess Orella waiting for him near the glowing trees. "I figured you'd come here," she said. Ryland stood still. "Shouldn't you be resting?" "I could ask you the same." They both smiled. She stepped closer. "You passed the trial today. Do you know why it matters so much?" Ryland shook his head. She looked toward the stars. "My people. They believe only those with honor deserve power. But many here think strength is enough. I'm to be queen one day. I don't want to share power with someone who only knows war." Ryland said nothing for a while. Then he spoke quietly. "Sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who protect peace, not break it." She turned to face him. "Exactly." There was silence between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Finally, Orella asked, "Do you really want to win this tournament, to marry me?" Ryland looked her in the eyes. "I didn't come here to marry anyone. I came to show who I am. But if that leads to something more, then I'll accept it with respect." Orella's cheeks warmed slightly. She nodded and walked away, but her steps were slower, more thoughtful. The next morning brought a dangerous twist. The next trial was about to begin when a sudden explosion shook the lower level of the arena. Guards ran, alarms blared, and chaos filled the halls. An enemy had broken into the arena tunnels. It wasn't part of the game. Orella was missing. Panic spread fast. The council feared a political attack. Some nobles even accused other competitors. Ryland didn't wait. He remembered the map the princess gave him earlier, the same one showing the underground paths. He dashed through the halls, avoided the guards, and entered the tunnel behind the garden. Inside, he found traces of struggle, marks on the wall, a broken necklace. Orella's. He followed the trail deep underground, through the heat tunnels, below the fire arena. There he saw two attackers, a masked alien and a rogue competitor, dragging Orella toward an exit gate. She was struggling but bound by a stun rope. Without hesitation, Ryland leapt forward. The fight was quick but fierce. Ryland didn't have weapons, just a piece of broken metal pipe and his instincts. He fought with precision, dodging the attackers, knife disarming him and throwing him into the tunnel wall. He untied Orella. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, but how did you find me?" He held up her necklace. "You dropped this." Orella blinked, then smiled. "You're better than I thought." They hurried back as the guards arrived. The attackers were arrested, and the council declared Ryland a hero. But Ryland didn't care about the attention. He just made sure Orella was safe. That evening, the princess stood before the council and made a bold statement. "If this tournament is about strength and character," she said, "then we must honor what happened today." Queen Elira looked at Ryland. "He didn't just win a trial today," she said. "He proved why he's still here." The day of the final battle had arrived. The grand arena of Veltraxia stood tall under the twin suns. Its shining walls were decorated with flags from 100 worlds. The crowds filled every seat, buzzing with excitement. The final round of the Tournament of Hearts was about to begin. Only 2 warriors remained. One was Lord Threx, a tall, powerful Veltraxian noble, known for his great strength and perfect combat form. His armor gleamed gold and his weapons were made from star-forged steel. Many believed he would win from the start. The other was Rylan, the human. He wore no armor, only a simple uniform with light padding. His weapon was a basic training staff, not sharp, not glowing, just solid wood. And yet he had made it to the final round without needing power or show. He had come this far through strategy, kindness, and courage. Princess Aurela watched from the royal balcony. Her heart was beating faster than usual. She had watched every trial. She had seen many warriors fall. But the human had stood firm, even when alone. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. People of the galaxy, today we witness the final duel of the Tournament of Hearts. 2 warriors stand before us. Only one will win the honor to claim the hand of our princess. The gate opened. Rylan and Threx entered the ring. Threx stood tall, looking down at the human. You have done well, Earthling, he said in a deep voice. But this ends now. You are not one of us. You don't belong here. Rylan simply nodded. I'm not here to belong. I'm here to stand. Threx growled, raising his blade. Then stand and fall. The signal rang. The duel began. Threx charged with great force. His sword cut through the air, powerful enough to break stone. Rylan jumped aside, narrowly dodging the first strike. He didn't try to meet strength with strength. He stayed light, moved fast, and watched carefully. Every step Threx took made the ground shake. He was strong, fast, and trained in a dozen martial styles. But he was used to fighting warriors who fought back the same way, full of power and pride. Rylan was different. He stepped in when needed, tapped Threx's legs to unbalance him, then stepped away. He used the training staff not to attack, but to redirect. He blocked with grace, turned defense into control, and kept breathing slow. The crowd was silent, watching the dance between brute power and quiet skill. Then Threx grew angry. You mock me by running, he shouted. Rylan answered, No, I respect you by surviving. Threx swung harder. His blade cut Rylan's shoulder, just a graze, but enough to draw blood. Rylan stepped back, held his arm, and took a deep breath. Princess Aurela stood up from her seat. Enough, she whispered. Please don't get hurt. But Rylan didn't stop. He stepped forward again. This time he waited until Threx raised his sword and then rolled forward, striking Threx's leg with his staff. The large warrior stumbled. Rylan stood again, ready. The duel lasted longer than anyone expected. 10 minutes, then 15. Threx was sweating. His strength began to fade. His swings were slower. His frustration was clear. Rylan, though tired, remained calm. He had trained for this. On Earth, he had learned patience. He had faced wars where rushing meant death. He had learned to listen to his heart, not his anger. And now, the final moment came. Threx raised his sword for a finishing strike, but Rylan stepped inside his reach and dropped his staff. Then he gently placed his hand on Threx's chest. Don't want to beat you, I want to honor you, he said. Threx paused. The crowd held their breath. I came to show that strength is not just in muscle, Rylan continued, but in choice. And my choice is not to hurt you. Threx looked into the human's eyes. For the first time, he saw no fear, no ego, just truth. Threx slowly stepped back and dropped his sword. I yield, he said. You are stronger than I thought. The crowd exploded into cheers. From the balcony, Queen Elira rose, raising her hand. The human has won. Later that evening, the final ceremony took place in the royal hall. All eyes were on Rylan as he walked forward, his uniform cleaned and his arm wrapped in bandage. He stood before the throne where Queen Elira and Princess Aurela sat. The queen spoke with pride. By trial and test you have proven yourself. You came not as a conqueror but as a warrior of heart. We honor your victory. She turned to her daughter. As tradition allows, the final choice is yours. All grew quiet. Princess Orella stepped down from the throne and stood before Rylan. You didn't fight for me, she said softly. You didn't try to impress me. You respected me and showed me who you truly are. She held out her hand. And because of that, I choose you. Rylan gently took her hand. There were no loud cheers at that moment, just a deep silence, a powerful feeling. Then, slowly, the crowd stood, one by one, offering a respectful bow. The story of the human who came alone, faced impossible odds, and won the heart of a princess would never be forgotten. The stars above Veltraxia shined brighter that night. The tournament was over. The last echoes of battle had faded and the world was calm. But inside the palace, a different kind of tension remained. The council had accepted Rylan as the winner. The people had bowed to his victory, and yet the whispers in the halls had not stopped. Some nobles were pleased, impressed by the human's courage and honor. Others still doubted him. To them, Earth was a simple planet. Its people were not from royal blood, nor did they have powerful technology. But Princess Orella didn't care about bloodlines. She cared about heart, and Rylan had proven his more than anyone. The next morning, Rylan stood alone in the royal gardens. The sun was rising slowly. A cool breeze moved through the golden trees. He looked up at the sky, wondering what would come next. Winning the tournament had never been his real goal. It had started as a challenge to show the galaxy what humans were capable of, but now something had changed. He had begun to care, not about the title, not about the fame, but about her, Princess Orella, the one person who had looked at him not as a warrior, but as a person. He heard soft footsteps behind him. He didn't turn around. He already knew who it was. You don't sleep much, do you? Orella asked with a gentle smile. Rylan gave a small nod. Old habit. Soldiers rest with one eye open. She stood beside him, her silver dress lightly brushing the grass. The sky turned orange and pink in the distance. Do you regret coming here? She asked. He looked at her. No. I found something here I didn't know I needed. She raised an eyebrow. And what's that? A reason to stay. Orella blushed slightly, then looked down. The council still talks. Some say you should return to Earth, that your place isn't beside a princess. I'm not surprised, Rylan said, but I didn't win their hearts. I only tried to show who I really am. Orella stepped closer. And you showed me. Later that day, a formal gathering was held in the palace hall. Leaders and nobles from across the galaxy were present. Some had traveled days to witness what would happen next. Queen Elira sat upon her throne, dressed in her full ceremonial robes. To her left stood Princess Orella. To her right, Rylan, wearing traditional Veltraxian white, a sign of peace and honor. The queen raised her voice. Today we close the sacred tournament with respect and pride. A human warrior has risen above every challenge. He has fought not with greed, but with wisdom, not with anger, but with heart. She looked toward her daughter, and now by ancient law the final choice lies with the one whose heart is most important, our princess. All eyes turned to Orella. She took a deep breath. I have met many warriors. I have seen strength, beauty, pride. But never before have I met someone who challenged everything I believed, without forcing me to change. Stepped forward. Rylan of Earth, I choose you, not because you won, but because you never tried to win me. You only showed me your truth. Gasps filled the room, then silence. Queen Elira rose from her throne. Slowly she walked toward Rylan and placed a small royal symbol, a glowing blue gem, on his shoulder. You are no longer just a warrior, she said. You are now a protector of Veltraxia. After the ceremony, the people of Veltraxia gathered in the city square to celebrate. Lights floated in the sky. Music played from every corner, and the smell of sweet fruit and warm bread filled the air. Rylan walked through the crowd beside Orella, now no longer just a soldier, but someone deeply respected. Children waved at him. Some called out, "Human hero." Others tried to touch his hand. He smiled awkwardly. "This is new." Orella laughed. "Get used to it. You've made history." They stopped by a quiet fountain. Rylan looked at her seriously. "Are you sure about this? Once you choose, it's forever." She reached for his hand. "I know what I'm doing. I trust you, and I trust myself." He looked into her violet eyes. "Then I'll stay. Not because I won, but because I care." Orella leaned forward and whispered, "So do I." Their hands stayed joined as fireworks lit up the sky. In the weeks that followed, Rylan remained on Veltraxia. He trained with the royal guards, helped improve security around the palace, and even shared knowledge from Earth. Slowly, he became more than a visitor. He became part of the planet's future. Orella introduced him to her council, and together they discussed new peace programs with other worlds. Rylan's calm voice helped settle arguments that had lasted for years. His way of thinking, direct, honest, and human, was something the galaxy had rarely seen. One day, while walking through the garden they once stood in, Orella stopped him. "No," she said. "There's still one final tradition." Rylan raised an eyebrow. "Another trial?" "No," she laughed. "A proposal." He smiled. "Then let me say it simply." He knelt on one knee, picked a flower from the bush beside him, and looked up at her. "Orella, would you allow me to walk beside you? As a friend, a partner, and if it's your will, your husband?" Orella's eyes shimmered. "Yes, Rylan, I will." And so it was written, the story of a human who came alone with no army, no crown, and no plan to win a princess. A man who earned her heart by being himself. In a galaxy full of warriors, machines, and empires, it was a human heart that proved strongest, and Veltraxia would never forget the name. Rylan of Earth, the warrior who won with honor and loved with truth.